Despite our modern world, there are many communities and groups who maintain a completely different way of life than we do. There are thought to be around 100 uncontacted tribes in the world, with half of them living in the Amazon rainforest. We've got a lot to cover, so I won't waste any time getting into our list today. Let's dive right into the top 10 isolated tribes who want to be left alone. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the Toromona. The Toromona are a group of people who are indigenous to Bolivia, and they live near the upper Madidi River, which is a part of the Amazon basin, and the Heath River in the northwestern area of Bolivia. There hasn't been any notable contact with this tribe aside from other indigenous tribes, but this tribe was talked about a lot when a Norwegian biologist searched specifically for this tribe for many years before he mysteriously disappeared in the region of the Madidi Park in 1997. This tribe has remained quite isolated, and the most recent known sighting in the 21st century was when the Ayoreo people of Bolivia informed an anthropologist named Michael Brohan that they had contacted a group that was in voluntary isolation on the eastern bank of the Marini River. It wasn't confirmed that this was the Toromona tribe, but it is believed that that's who they saw. Thankfully, in 2006, Bolivia's administrative resolution created an exclusive, reserved, and untouchable portion of the Madidi National Park in order to protect the Toromona and their desires to be uncontacted. In our number 9 spot today we have the Kawahiva. The Kawahiva peoples used to be referred to as the Rio Pardo Indians, and they are an uncontacted tribe that resides in Mato Grosso, Brazil. This group is definitely nomadic people, and so most of what we know about them comes from the things they leave behind when moving to a new place, such as arrows, baskets, hammocks, and their communal houses. It is unclear exactly when the Kawahiva people became a tribe, as our knowledge of their modern existence began in 1999, but it is believed that this group goes as far back as the 1700s. As I mentioned before, they live in communal houses, and they use a primitive form of a spinning wheel in order to make string, and they use tree bark to make nets. It is very rare for a non-indigenous group to have a sighting of the Kawahiva, and neighboring tribes refer to them as either tiny people or redheads. It is believed that loggers in the area have intentionally tried to keep the Kawahiva on the run, and it is speculated by the human rights group Survival International that the women of the tribe have stopped giving birth. It is unclear exactly how many Kawahiva people there are left, but it is estimated to be around 4 separate Kawahiva bands, with maybe around 15 people in each band. Like many of the tribes on today's list, their existence is always threatened by deforestation, illegal logging, and just attempts to either kill or enslave them. In 2001, the tribe's land was put under local protection, but that protection was periodically removed by the courts before being later reinstated. And in 2012, the land was turned into an official reservation. In our number 8 spot today we have the Carabayo. The Carabayo are a group of uncontacted people who live in the Rio Pure National Park in the southeastern corner of Colombia. The Carabayo live in at least 3 longhouses, which are usually narrow single-room houses. They share this national park with both the Pasay and the Jumana peoples. In the last 400 years there has been outsider contact with the Carabayo people, but not much, as the contact usually involves violent attacks by slave traders and rubber extractors, which has only increased their desire for isolation, which makes a lot of sense. It is believed that these people may refer to themselves as the Yakumo, and there truly isn't much that is known about them, which honestly is probably a good thing. In December of 2001, the president, Juan Manuel Santos, signed Legal Decree number 4633, which was designed to guarantee uncontacted people's rights to their voluntary isolation, their traditional territories, and even reparations if they face violence from outsiders, which really is such a great thing. While this decree alone of course isn't going to stop some people from illegal contact, it is nice to see that steps are being made to protect these people. In our number 7 spot today we have the Nomole, or the Nomole. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this one. The Nomole people are an indigenous tribe of nomadic hunter-gatherers who inhabit the remote regions of a national park in Peru, which is part of the Amazon rainforest. They are more commonly referred to as the Mashco Piro peoples, but that name was first used in 1687 to refer to those who are native to Peru, but it's actually considered a derogatory term considering the word Mashco means savages. In 1998, there was estimated to be around 100 to 250 members of this tribe, which was a welcomed increase from the 1976 estimate of somewhere from 20 to 100. The Nomole peoples have actively avoided any contact with non-indigenous people, and truly, who could blame them? In 1894, most of this tribe was slaughtered by the private army of Carlos Fitzgerald, who was a rubber baron. Those who survived this attack retreated to the most remote forest areas where they could be safe. In the 21st century, there's been an increase in the sightings of people from this tribe, but they certainly still are not actively seeking any contact with the outside world. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Dslala. The Dslala are an indigenous people of Brazil living in the lower Vale do Javari in the western Amazon basin. These peoples are split into two groups, one splinter group led by a woman named Maya that is around 23 people, while the larger main group is around 150 people. The split between the groups came from a dispute between around 20 members, and while the larger group remains quite isolated, the smaller group has had some infrequent contact with neighboring settlements. The hunting and war weapon of choice of this tribe is the club, but they are also known to use poison darts. Both the men and women of this tribe paint themselves with red dye that is made from plants. There is little that is known about their religious or spiritual practices, but it is known that they live in communal huts, which is something that is different from many of the uncontacted tribes on today's list. This tribe is more often referred to as the Korubo people, but apparently this name was given to them by a former enemy tribe and is said to be negative and degrading, which is why we will be referring to them by the less common name of Dslala. This tribe's biggest struggle in terms of illness and death at the moment seems to be malaria. This tribe has a long history with the massacres of indigenous peoples, so it makes sense that they want to remain isolated and have not welcomed outside contact very much since the 1950s. In 1996, there began expeditions to try and make peaceful contact, but the Dslala are known to kill trespassers on their land, which we truly cannot blame them for, and the most recent incident of this nature came in 2000 when 3 lumbermen were killed near the native reservation. It definitely serves as a reminder to leave people who don't want to be contacted alone. If they want our influence, they know where to find us. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Ayoreo. The Ayoreo people are the indigenous people of Gran Chaco, and they live in both Bolivia as well as Paraguay. There are approximately 5,600 Ayoreo peoples, and while many of them ended up becoming sedentarized by missionaries in the 20th century, there are around 100 people who have still maintained the traditional nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle and remain uncontacted. The Ayoreo were first contacted by Jesuits in the 1720s to try and convert people to Catholicism, and in the 1740s the mission was abandoned and the Ayoreo were luckily left alone. Until the 1900s. The Chaco War between Bolivia and Paraguay brought in 100,000 troops to the territory as well as all of the diseases they carried. Both countries saw the Ayoreo as a problem, and from the 1940s to the 1970s there was a rule where a Paraguayan soldier could be freed from service by killing one of them. At this time, Ayoreo children were also being stolen, and one 12-year-old was even put on display in an exhibit. In the 1940s and 50s, the work of missionaries continued, and in the late 50s, missionaries used force and manipulation to remove the Ayoreo from their land to various mission stations, and the land where they once lived was sold for cattle farming. These mission stations forced the Ayoreo living in them to give up their culture, including their religion, appearance, music, and diet, and missionaries sometimes convinced the Ayoreo living at the missions to find uncontacted Ayoreo in the forest to sedentarize and convert them. And in December of 1986, that unsurprisingly turned out to be a horrible idea that led to 5 deaths. The Ayoreo people who are in contact now are struggling with both poverty as well as discrimination, and the uncontacted Ayoreo have 6 main threats, which are cattle farming and deforestation, sale and allocation of their territory, searches for oil, missionaries seeking contact, illegal collection of territory resources, and violation of territory by various groups. I could dive into each of these points and discuss why they are such a threat to these people, but I'll leave that for your homework because we have got to keep this list moving right along. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Tagaeri. The Tagaeri are an eastern Huaorani people living in the Ecuadorian Amazon basin. This group was once a part of the Huaori families, but they separated off in 1968 after refusing missionary settlement, and since then have lived in isolation. Their name comes from one of their members' tag. There haven't been many interactions since then with other Huaorani, but the interactions that have happened are often met with violence. It is estimated that there are around 20 to 30 surviving Tagaeri, and they are one of the 2 remaining indigenous groups living in voluntary isolation in Ecuador. These people are semi-nomadic and live off hunting and gathering as well as a few crops. Since 2007, there has been a national policy to try and help protect them that includes untouchability, self-determination, equality, and no contact. The threats to the Tagaeri include illegal loggers of tropical hardwood, foreign disease, smugglers, settlers, and oil companies moving into the area with drilling taking place all over their land. In 2008, investigations began into reports that 5 Tagaeri people had been killed by illegal loggers. As we get closer to the end of our list, it becomes abundantly clear that many of these isolated tribes face extremely similar threats, which is quite interesting and unfortunately extremely unsurprising. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Taromenane. Remember in the last point about the Tagaeri how I mentioned that they were one of the last 2 uncontacted tribes in Ecuador? Well, this is the other one. These people live in the Yasuni National Park in the Ecuadorian Amazon basin, and this tribe also has some distant relations to the Huayurani people. There's estimated to be around 150 to 300 people in this tribe who maintain their nomadic lifestyle in the rainforest. While, like everyone else on their list, 2 of their main threats are oil developments and illegal loggers, the Taromenane have another, more unexpected threat, and that is the Huayurani. In 2013, more than 20 of these people were killed by the Huayurani, which left 2 child survivors who were taken as hostages. Apparently, the people who took part in this terrible tragedy bragged about it on national television at first, calling themselves brave for attacking and taking the lives of unarmed people with rifles, pistols, and long spears, and even went as far as selling photos of it to the highest bidder. There's so much to cover in regards to this one incident that I unfortunately don't have time for, but the whole situation is extremely tragic and just downright horrible. Much of these disputes stem from the land that they share because of the fact that the Taromenane have been pushed deeper into the forest from the Huayurani allowing oil companies to drill on the land. It of course is a very complicated issue that has so much more to it. In our number 2 spot today we have the Awa, are a group of people living in the eastern Amazon rainforest. There are around 350 living members, but not all of them remain uncontacted. Out of the 350, it is believed that around 100 members continue to try to remain uncontacted, although it unfortunately hasn't been as easy as it should for them. The Awa were once settled people but began to live a more nomadic lifestyle around the 1800s in order to try and escape incursions by Europeans. They were further threatened by settlers who cleared out most of the forests on their land. In 1982, the Brazilian government received a loan of $900 million from the World Bank and the European Union, but under a condition that the lands of certain indigenous peoples, including the Awa, be protected. This should have been the key to helping protect these peoples, considering their lives were continually being threatened. There were many cases of tribespeople being killed by settlers, and the forest on which they depended was being destroyed by logging and land clearance for farming. Unfortunately, it took the government over 20 years to actually act on this condition, and finally in March of 2003 the Awa's land was finally distinguished. And to make matters a little worse for these peoples, there are always people who won't respect their land no matter what laws are in place. In late 2011, illegal loggers burned an 8-year-old Awa girl alive after she wandered out of her village, and a leader from another group of people said that the girl had been killed as a warning to other native peoples living in the protected area. According to the human rights organization that campaigns for the rights of indigenous tribal peoples, Survival International, the Awa are the Earth's most threatened tribe. The Awa forests are still disappearing faster than any other area in the Brazilian Amazon, and loggers still remain as their biggest threat. No industry or amount of money is worth these people's lives and their way of life, and serious action to protect them needs to be taken before it's too late. In our number 1 spot today we have the Man of the Hole. This one is quite different from the others on this list because not only is this only one man, but we don't actually know the name of the tribe that he belongs to. It is believed that he may be the last known survivor of his people, who were probably all killed by cattle ranchers, which is absolutely devastating. Because of the fact that we do not know his name, what tribe he belongs to, or even what language he speaks, his nickname, the Man of the Hole, comes from the large holes he digs, which are created to trap animals as well as a place for him to hide, but it is also believed that these holes may have had a spiritual significance to the tribe that he belongs to. His isolated existence first became known in 1996, and it is believed that the other members of his tribe were killed in a number of clashes between the 1980s and the 1990s. One expert explains that, quote, "He should not be seen as a recluse hiding from society. The man is the survivor of genocide. He didn't choose to live alone. He lives in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, and in 2007 the Brazilian government declared that the 31 square mile area around him would be off limits to trespassing and development, and an additional 11.5 square miles was later added to that. He is often monitored from afar in order to prevent any unwelcome guests from entering his land, but despite these attempts, he was still attacked by gunmen in 2009 and thankfully managed to survive like the warrior that he absolutely is. He maintains avoiding contact with others, although he does know that he is being monitored. The Brazilian government's protection agency, FUNAI, will periodically leave him gifts of tools and seeds, and he will sometimes signal to observing teams so as to warn them of the holes he dug, so it seems as though there's some sort of trust that has been built there, which really is a nice thing to hear. In 2018, the FUNAI released a video of him with the intention of raising global awareness of the threats that face the uncontacted peoples in Brazil, and he appeared as though he may be somewhere in his 50s, but seemed in very good health. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Man, if I can't say words I do know how to pronounce right now, what's gonna happen later on in this list? Sedentarized. And it's gonna cut off anyway. Frickin' dang it. Frickin' dang it. Okay, I'm doing better than I thought I would do. This is looking good. This is a long one, so I apologize in advance. But there's a lot of stuff that needs to be covered with these people. We know so little, but also so much, you know? Awa awa.